first time Lieutenant Mara stepped onto the dusty plains of Zip, she expected the usual tense silence, maybe a few cautious stares from a distance. Standard first contact protocol. What she absolutely did not expect was to be mobbed by tiny, brightly colored alien cubs, squealing in a high-pitched chorus that sounded, well, it sounded more like laughter than a threat. They were adorable, no bigger than a puppy back on Earth. Their skin was almost translucent, shimmering like a rainbow under the planet's twin suns. And their eyes, they were enormous, liquid gold orbs that reflected her own startled face right back at her. For a moment, she just froze. All her training, all the simulations. Nothing had prepared her for this. First contact had never, ever looked like this. Easy now, she murmured, slowly holding out her hands, palms up, to show she meant no harm. The cubs just tilted their heads in unison, sniffed the dry air, and then, without any warning, they scampered closer. They hopped on legs that seemed far too thin to support their round little bodies, nuzzling her boots and chirping excitedly. Their tiny mouths were curled into what could only be described as smiles. This was getting stranger by the second. Then, Mara noticed one of them. A little one with a faint blue shimmer, sniffing at her satchel. "Whoa there, little guy," she chuckled. "That's not for you." She pulled out a small, sealed container of mango juice, her personal comfort item. A little taste of home for long, lonely journeys in deep space. The moment the container was in view, every single cub's head shot up. Their golden eyes widened even further, and a collective squeak of pure, unadulterated delight echoed around her. Through her earpiece, her communications officer's voice crackled, laced with disbelief. "Lieutenant, they like it. The cubs. The mango juice seems to be triggering some kind of positive neuroresponse." "Positive neuroresponse," Mara muttered to herself, a slow smile spreading across her face. She knelt down, popping the seal on the container. The sweet, tropical scent filled the air. She poured a small amount onto the flat, dusty ground. The golden-orange liquid shimmered as it spread across the rocks, catching the light of the twin suns like liquid fire. And then the cubs went absolutely wild. They leaped, they slid, they rolled around in the juice, their tiny tongues flicking out to catch every last droplet. They were so utterly joyful, so completely lost in the moment, that Mara couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Of course," she said, shaking her head in amusement. "Mango juice. I should have known. Humanity has been trying to make peaceful first contact for centuries, sending complex equations and peace treaties into the void. Maybe all we ever needed was a little fruit." The cubs didn't seem to care about galactic politics. They trusted her now. They brushed against her legs, making soft chirping sounds that almost sounded like they were trying to say her name. Mara tried speaking softly, using the universal gestures of peace she'd learned, but they just responded with more happy squeaks. And yet, somehow, she felt like they understood her. Seyfield Shen. Hours melted away under the alien suns. Mara began recording their behavior, taking notes. She noticed fascinating details. They seemed to prefer the sweeter, thicker parts of the juice. They licked carefully around the edges of the puddle first, as if saving the best for last. And sometimes one would scamper off and return with a small, smooth pebble, placing it carefully by her foot. She soon realized these were gifsa, primitive, but incredibly touching, offering of thanks. At one point, she held out her finger, and one brave little cub climbed right onto her hand. Its small body was warm and surprisingly strong. It carefully licked a drop of juice from her palm and then blinked its huge, golden eyes at her. It was a clear, simple thank you. In that moment, a connection was forged, more powerful than any treaty. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble, a deep, low vibration that shook her to the core. Mara looked up just in time to see immense shadows passing overhead. Their guardians, massive, adult Zerathians, were emerging from the nearby dunes. They were intimidating, easily 4 times her height. Wheat, powerful, segmented limbs and heads crowned with spiny, elaborate frills. Mara's heart pounded in her chest. All her training screamed danger. Her human diplomacy skills felt hopelessly inadequate against beings of this scale. But then, something incredible happened. The little cub she was holding squeaked loudly, jumped from her hand, and raced toward the giant adults. And clutched in its tiny jaws was her now empty satchel, still smelling faintly of mango. The massive adults stopped their advance, their heads swiveled, their frills quivering as they sniffed the air. Then, the leader, truly colossal being adorned with bright turquoise markings, approached Mara. It moved slowly, deliberately, not with aggression, but with a palpable sense of curiosity. It lowered its enormous head until its gaze, ancient and intelligent, met hers. There was a long, silent moment of assessment. And then, with an almost imperceptible nod, it backed away, gesturing for the others to do the same. Mara let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The juice. It wasn't just a snack. It was a bridge. Her simple, unplanned gift had earned the trust of an entire species, from the smallest cub to the most imposing guardian. It was a peace offering they understood on a primal level. Over the next few days, Mara made a ritual of it. She would bring small rations of mango juice, and the cubs would greet her with squeals of joy every single time. The adults, once so menacing, began allowing her closer to their living areas. Every sip of juice seemed to dissolve another layer of fear and misunderstanding, leaving only pure, shared curiosity in its place. She was no longer an intruder. She was the bringer of sweet, golden nectar. By the time her team was scheduled to leave Zerith 7, Mara had formed bonds she never thought possible. On her last day, tiny Alia, paws or hands, really clutched hers. In a clear gesture of farewell, she felt a sharp pang of sadness, a longing to stay. But she knew she had accomplished something profound. Humans were no longer outsiders on this world. They were friends, and it all started with the simple act of sharing. As her shuttle lifted off, spiraling into the alien sky, Mara looked down at the dusty plains. She could still see the cubs, tiny specks of color waving their limbs in the distance. A smile touched her lips as she whispered to herself, "Humans have always understood one thing. Sharing is universal." And somewhere, far below on the plains of Zerith, tiny golden eyes glimmered with joy, forever remembering the day a strange and wonderful being came from the stars and brought them the sweet, sweet gift of mango juice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more tailies from across the galaxy.